Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I'm here today with Erin Wathen, and our topic today is going to be all surrounding why can't I stick to my diet, which Erin is the author of. She wrote, Why Can't I Stick to My Diet? She is a holistic health coach, food abuse counselor, and the inspiring author of Why Can't I Stick to My Diet? How to End the Food Drama. Her philosophy, simply put, that health isn't a number on the scale or how often we exercise, but our lives as a whole. Several years ago, Erin was not at peace with her body despite her wealth of knowledge on diet and exercise. She was always on a diet and yet never reached her goal weight. As a graduate of the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and a food addiction counselor, she was well versed in the science behind health. As a certified spinning instructor, vinyasa yoga instructor, and classical Pilates instructor, she understood the mechanics of health and fitness as well. Through a lot of trial and error, Erin found true nutrition to be the missing piece of the puzzle. And when Erin started her last diet, which ultimately became her food plan, and the basis of her health coaching program, as well as her book. And you guys can get the book on Amazon. And I'm really excited to talk about this topic today because I feel that it's probably the hardest thing. It's working out is, most people can get that down. They can work out a few times a week, but it's the 365 days a year, however many times a day you're eating, that we have trouble with. And that is the biggest component to getting the results you want. So without further ado, let me welcome Erin Wathen to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your journey on your way to finding nutrition.
Well, I was one of those girls who was always on a diet, eventually became a woman. I went on my first diet when I was 14, lost 30 pounds over the summer to the point where a couple of teachers thought I was a transfer student. And that was great and all, but how do you maintain it? It was all about calories in, calories out in the 90s, fat-free, snack wells, the whole thing. And then that kind of got me on this path for, a couple decades of fighting my body. I was either on a diet, eating in a way that was going to eventually put me on a diet, about to go on a diet, obsessing about it. I was never just living. There was never just a consistent way I was being. And more importantly, I was crazy in my head about food and how many calories I ate. And, I had 3 pairs of the same style of pants because I never knew what size I was going to be. I wouldn't go somewhere if I felt fat, whatever that meant exactly was yet to be determined. So much emotional energy was spent on my weight. And then I, got all these certifications thinking if I only found the right exercise, then I would, get to that magic number. And, I have a lot of knowledge about exercise and I've always been an exerciser, but I never was able to get to the point in which I was effortlessly maintaining my weight. Because even if I got down to, the number where, the confetti falls from the sky in your bathroom, it was staying there. So when I finally realized I was eating a boatload of sugar every day and a ton of NutraSweet, and what that was doing to my brain, which made me want to eat this, until I understood the chemicals behind my food choices, that's when everything came into play. Because I just thought, I ate sugar a lot and it wasn't a big problem because I was never what you would deem overweight if you saw me walking down the street. Because my BMI was in the normal range. I was still able to teach group fitness, so I wasn't, looking unrealistic in that role. But to me, there was always the internal struggle because to me, I didn't feel comfortable. So once I was able to put my health in front of a number, that's when everything fell into place. And that's when I was able just to live. So now I'm just living. It's something I don't even think about anymore. I don't get worried about where we're going to go to dinner tonight, or if I have to wear a bathing suit without a month's notice. Like all the things I used to freak out about, I don't. And I always tell people, getting this food stuff down, this body image stuff down, has given me so much extra bandwidth in my brain that I was able to write a book and I was able to start a business, because having that freedom gave me so much extra time, because I just was spending it like obsessing always. So a little bit of insight.
So what did that look like for you, making those changes, putting your health first? What were some of the steps you took?
But first of all, I got rid of all the diet stuff, all the Diet Coke, all the fat-free, all the weird salad dressings, all the food that had tons of chemicals. I started deciding when I was going to eat the night before, because any game day decisions usually aren't good because you get too hungry, you get too influenced by everyone else eating at the restaurant. And also it makes you have whatever you need to eat already in the house. Because you're hoping, the food fairy is going to show up when you're at work. It's not going to.
Right.
I started making sure I always had the necessary macros when I ate. So if I was going to have a piece of fruit, I made sure I had coconut with it for protein and fat to slow down the absorption. I stopped snacking and I stopped eating after dinner. So just those 4 simple things that I talk about in my book, that's pretty much what I did. Because people ask me, like, what did you do? Like, what's the secret? I'm like, you can buy it for $14.95. There's no magic pill. There's no magic shake. There's no, extra, secret big. That's pretty much what I did. And also I kept exercising, but I realized it was more important that I get a good night's sleep than I get up at the crack of dawn and work out and I'm really tired. And the whole day I'm, dragging and making bad food choices, then get in a not so great workout at 4 a.m. before a flight. So once I was able to realize exercise is wonderful if it's in perspective, because I thought it was end all be all, because that's how a lot of us grew up. And I worked out this morning, don't get me wrong, but if I don't work out, it isn't a crisis. And I eat how I eat every day. And I don't exercise so I can eat like I used to. I used to do like a 90-minute spin class so I could, go out to dinner and eat whatever I wanted. I don't look at food as, this thing that I should be just purging on. Binging on. I don't look at it as, one day I can do whatever I want. I just look at it as what I kind of need to eat, what I need to do in order to get me to the next, whatever. Well, I used to look at it was my friend, it was entertainment, it was celebration. My perspective on food has changed as well.
Why do you think diets are so hard to stick with?
Well, first of all, because we go on them with the intention of going off. So you have a wedding, you have a reunion, you have a vacation. So for 2 weeks, you're going to drink this sludge, right? You lose 10 pounds, but you didn't change the mindset. You didn't change the part of your life that got you to gain the 10 pounds. So there's no reason why I should not come back, because whatever wasn't working is still not going to be working after the reunion. So there's that part of it. And there's also the biological part of, you starving yourself and, your evolution and all that kind of stuff. But the part that I think a lot of us don't understand from years of being in the dieting trenches is, why do we go to food in the first place? If we don't fix that part, it's just, rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. If you do keto or paleo or Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig, it's all the same. If you still hate your job, you still hate your job. It doesn't really matter, because you're still stopping and getting a carton of Ben and Jerry's. But until we fix that stuff, which is oftentimes the thing we really don't want to touch, it's so much easier to go on a diet. So that's why it's hard to stick to diets, because the mindset.
Absolutely. Because if you really watch how kids are, they play, they eat, they never feel like they have to, for the most part, overeat. I think like they have a little bit of what they want. And I think if you just really see how they're happy and they don't have that stress, it's just kind of like they're eating intuitively in a way, if you think about it. And I think we make this big thing out of eating, like, we think that people will love us more if we're skinnier, or I think we just have all these misconceptions around our bodies and health, and, realizing that the full circle happiness is one of the key elements to not overeating, right?
No, totally. And I think too, oftentimes, I hear this a lot from people who, have big families or, certain ethnicities, that if they don't eat, someone's going to get offended. Or, we always have to have these certain foods on holidays. And yet everyone's supposed to be skinny. So it's like, we go with all these mixed messages. The food is so like emotionally just heavy, and then if you compare that to how like a 5-year-old eats, take a couple bites and they go back to playing, they just don't, unless you really mess with their head, they don't really care that it's Christmas as far as the food goes. They're back to their presents while the adults are circling around, the chips and dips all night. So it's like,
right.
Something happens between 5 and 15 that makes us a little get off kilter. But I just know that when we're able to prioritize food as far as where it really needs to be in the order of importance, it makes life a lot easier. Like when people that come back from a vacation and all they can talk about is what they ate, I feel badly for them, because
that shouldn't be the highlight of their trip.
They went to Paris. Like, what did you see? How did you feel? Who were you with? I'm glad you had a really great, croissant. but when we're able to, food isn't really fun. Food is entertainment. It's not your friend. It's just what you need to fuel your body. And if you can work towards seeing food as fuel, and I know a lot of athletes, that's easier for us to get to, right? Because I was an athlete when I was younger. You need to eat the right kind of fuel, like, right kind of gas for your car. But for people that are, really into baking or really into cooking for their family as a sign of love, you can still do that, but it doesn't mean you have to make lasagna every day. So just getting people to kind of switch how they look at food is a really important first step.
Oh, self-love, self-care, and taking the best care of yourself. What are some easy to follow strategies for getting out of sticky food situations like you described, with holidays and just maybe, celebrations, or somebody made you a 10,000 calorie pie?
One of my biggest recommendations to my clients is always eat before you leave the house. And I know that blows people's minds, because you never really know what people are going to have at their house, or when they're going to serve it, or how they're going to serve it. I've been, invited to barbecues that are 5 o'clock. We don't eat till 9:30, and the chips and the margaritas are out the whole time. But if you ate something that was healthy at 4:30, you could probably be okay until, you have a small amount of salad at 9:30 or 10. So if you eat something before you go at your own house that you can control, it eliminates so much. But as far as getting out of things, a big one is like, I'll eat it later, or thank you, I'll have it with, something. Unless the host is really, really got their own problems with food, they're usually okay with you kind of eating it later, or I'm going to have it with my coffee, or, some sort of distraction method. I've noticed that 99% of the time, most hosts really don't care. If you're just thank you so much, I'm gonna have it with, if they were with my kid or whatever at a birthday party. They're too busy, dealing with all the presents to notice if, Erin eats the cake or not. But a lot of people are really worried that someone's going to get offended if they eat food.
Truly, this is a problem. I wrote about it in the Sisterhood of Sweat book, that it's basically food shaming sometimes. And I really feel like some of it is on us not to go on and on about our diets and make it such a big deal. But a lot of it really, you go somewhere, and if you're not having what everybody else is having, sometimes there is a bit of peer pressure on that. What are your recommendations surrounding that?
Well, just to comment on your first part of it, I do think not being a miserable cow about what you are eating is really important. because that's really irritating to go somewhere and someone tells you that what you're eating is toxic waste. And did you know this? And did you know that? Like, shut up already. Like, whatever, leave everyone else's food alone. Like, that's just their business. Because quite frankly, if they wanted that information, they'd probably ask you. And they're not asking you because they don't want it right now. So that's the first step. But second of all, like, if someone gives you grief about something, just say, you know, I'm staying away from it for right now. And just, that gives everyone else permission to eat it. That doesn't make your decision not to eat it a personal slight. You know, just right now, I'm not eating potatoes. It doesn't mean that you eating it makes you a bad person, or that me choosing to stay away from it makes me, you know, this sanctimonious martyr. It just means right now I'm not eating potatoes. So finding that kind of like perfect, you know, and then change the subject to how great the new drapes look. But I do know, like, if grandmas that make you your special whatever, you can always kind of dodge it a little bit. But, you know, dinner parties are kind of, you know, when you're all sitting down at the same time, that's when things can get weird. But also, it's on someone else if they choose to make it weird.
Right. And I think, you know, you've got to have some strategy surrounding it, because it definitely is going to happen when you're really eating clean if you're surrounded by people that are not. So I think it's important to have some go-to strategies to get you out of situations with food, because that's the biggest thing. I think a lot of times we're drawn into our friends, we're going out with them and they're all having margaritas, or they're all having the ooey gooey chocolate brownie, and we just have to find some strategies, because you have to realize that when you're living your life, these things are going to happen.
Absolutely. And what I always like to go to is, sure, if I have the ooey gooey brownie, I've had ooey gooey brownies before. I mean, you and I have had them at least, you know, two or three times in our lives. How do we feel afterwards? How do those serve us? How do we feel the next morning? I mean, I can walk myself through it. No, it's not worth the 5 minutes of fun it seems to be, or the kinship I feel with my friends as we're all diving into it. So I kind of usually give my hands something to do, whether it be, you know, hot tea with lemon or water, or I'll get up and go to the bathroom, just to remind myself that this is just a moment. But I don't want to give my body the reintroduction of the fat and the sugar, because I know it's going to take at least 3 days to detox from that stuff. That's just the science of it all. So the social pressure of it is just, think about the rest of the meal being really good, or the rest of the night's going to be really good. And that's just the dessert's just a blip. So putting it in perspective of your whole life, or your whole fitness goals, your own health goals, I think is important, because oftentimes that's what trips people up. I was really good until happy hour. I was really good until, and getting away from the good and bad mentality, because what I really emphasize is more of a food plan or a food protocol. So like, every day you try to eat, you know, protein and fat and vegetables. Well, sure, if you really want, you know, cake at your sister's wedding, plan for it ahead of time. But, you know, just know leading into that wedding, you're going to be feeling the effects of that for a couple of days. But a brownie on the fly with your friends, that's probably not going to end well. The cake isn't going to end well either, but you've been leading up to it for a while. So it's definitely a decision you made, while the cake's more peer pressure, or the brownie, whatever we called it.
Why should we break up with sugar?
Because it's a very bad boyfriend. The worst boyfriend ever. Just in a nutshell, because it does nothing good for us other than the momentary hit of, you know, that of the high of the dopamine receptors, of the pleasure sensors in our brain get very happy very quickly, especially how sugar is manufactured now. So it's genetically modified. And that's really fun for a very quick period of time. If you think about it, like a Frappuccino, you're super buzzed. And as quickly as it comes in, it goes out. So the instant gratification works in both directions. And then we're left with a choice of, do we keep it up, or do we just let everything go down? I mean, oftentimes our energy is lower an hour later after having sugar than it was before. It's bad for our teeth. It's bad for our organs. You know, if you have anxiety, it makes it worse. I could go on and on and on. But what's really crazy about sugar is the more sugar we eat, the more sugar we crave. So the idea of just having one piece to get that craving satisfied backfires. So it's kind of one of those things where I really wish there was some magic I could give you to where you can have, you know, a bag of gummy bears once a month. You're going to have to settle with fruit if you want some sort of sweetness, and you're going to have to know how to eat it. But as far as the fake sugars, they're also kind of problematic. But just realizing it does nothing but take away from your health is how I really wrap my brain around it. And I was the kind of person that had like hidden stacks of candy in my car. I was really into it and had been since I was a little kid. So, you know, I was getting cavities. I still had acne in my 30s. And by the way, no one ever connected the dots. No one ever asked me what I was eating. All these New York City doctors that I was paying a ton of money to, no one ever said, tell me a day in your life of like, what are you consuming? They just like sold me expensive things. so what we're eating is such a simple way to improve our health, but oftentimes we don't want to do it so much because it's so fun, or so we think it's fun to eat a certain way. When actually what's really fun is to not be sick, or to not have an extra 10 pounds, or to not have cavities when you're 35. That sounds like a lot more fun to me. But as far as why we should give up sugar, there's a lot of reasons, but I think ultimately you need to find the one that resonates with you. But again, it goes to prioritizing where food needs to be in your life.
Well, I think you have to break the sugar addiction because it's more addictive than crack cocaine.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a big part of it. I just always tell my clients, if you want to get over sugar, you have, like you said, break up with it. You have to completely cut it out, because you just have, I mean, some people could have 2 bites, but most people that are really addicted to sugar, they just need to really cut the sugar out, because it causes you to crave more sugar, because it's lifting up your blood sugar, and your blood sugar comes up and then it crashes after having all that sugar. So then what do you want? More sugar. And it's just like this never ending cycle. So like you said, you got to break up with sugar.
Yeah. And I think too, you also need to be aware of the booty calls. You need to be aware of, you know, getting it out of your, I mean, all the breakup analogies, because, you know, thinking you've been really good for a month, you can finally, you know, have a little bit of it, you know, when you're 2 a.m. or whatever. No, because your body still remembers. Your body's like, I know someone that had been off sugar for 15 years, and all of a sudden she woke up like needing donuts. Didn't know what's going on, right?
It was something else she needed, probably.
No, there was an ingredient in her tea.
Okay.
But I'm saying is, after 3 days of waking up dreaming of donuts after not having any sugar for 15 years, realized there was something in the tea that was triggering her.
Yeah.
That's how sensitive we are to sugar, because our
Wow.
body loves it.
Pretty sensitive.
But I'm saying is that, so there's no booty calls. Get all the information out of your phone, and just, you've had enough for a lifetime. You know what licorice tastes like, because if you don't completely cut it out and look at it as an addiction, our brain loves workarounds, especially if you're a long-time dieter like I was. Like, if you ever did Weight Watchers, you love exceptions. You love being able to eat what you want on 1 day a week. That crap is dieting mentality. That's what gets us, quite frankly, needing to lose weight in the first place. Being good, being bad, you know, all those things. It's all part of the big mess of why we feel guilty and why we have this and why we have that. So if we can just stop looking at it as a short-term solution and start looking at it as, how do I want to eat for the rest of my life? Because I'm sick of thinking about this all the time. Then your body can decide, hey, I really kind of want to weigh like 120 or whatever number your body ends up at, without you starving yourself to 120 and being miserable, because that's not living either.
Right. It isn't. I think people are way too caught up and concerned about food, or like they step over bananas to pick up a brownie. You know what I mean? Like, they're afraid to eat like something healthy and delicious sometimes, but then they'll fall off and eat something totally like off plan, and it just, or off, not really healthy, I guess is what I should say.
Oh yeah. I've had clients who, absolutely will not eat, a mango because there's too much sugar.
Yes.
But then they end up inhaling a bread basket the next day.
Right. It would have been better to eat that natural, healthy mango, because I'm sure something in there is good for you.
And by the way, maybe the mango would have prevented the bread basket.
Yeah, for sure.
That's like parallel universe kind of thinking. But as a rule, I always tell my clients to stick to the perimeter of the grocery store, meaning like the less processed crap we eat, the better. So all that diet food, all the packaged goods, like all that kind of stuff first of all, isn't really necessary. But second of all, that's where a lot of the sugars and a lot of the chemicals and a lot of the refined flours live, which spikes our blood sugar, makes us, just moody, it crashes, all heck breaks loose. When if we can just try to eat real food again, like a real piece of chicken, a real piece of lettuce, stay away from all this, processed food. And I get it. It can be a hassle sometimes to make it all or find it all, but we need to just change how we think about food. Like you were saying, the stepping over the banana to get the brownie, the snacking, the sodas, like all this sort of stuff that we've gotten used to over the last couple of years is why so many of us are flat out like strung out on sugar. Like think of the day after Halloween. Kids are nasty.
Oh my gosh, right?
It's The Walking Dead, right?
I just remember as a parent, I didn't want to give my kids a lot of sugar because you paid the price when they did, right?
Yeah, they are sugared over. They are hung over from sugar.
Right. It's
and it is not good to be around.
Right. And also I think you can have a food hangover as well when you overeat pizza or, anything that really isn't all that, great for you. And so like you said, you have to really think about, I always do, how I'm going to feel later, how I want to feel later, and what my real true why is, why I want what I want. Like, if you don't know why, it's going to be a lot easier to be, like we said on my podcast yesterday with Natalie Jill, to be eating those chips when they give you that booty call, and to be diving into pizza, because you haven't dialed in strong enough what your why is and how you truly want to feel later.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend the other day, and she's lost 30 pounds on keto. And I'm not picking on keto when I tell this story at all. But she's been on it, which is, if you do keto or paleo or most of these things, it's a way of life. The problem is most people look at them as a diet. And you can look at anything as a diet. You can look at, Overeaters Anonymous as a diet if you don't realize you have dieting thinking going on. And she was saying she'd been really good, which always makes me cringe, but she's cheated a couple of times. And I said, so, walk me through what happened. And sometimes, as you probably get it, your friends don't really like telling you these things because they know you're thinking, uh-oh. And, and then she was telling me like she ate some chocolate, like regular traditional chocolate. And I said, and you were out of ketosis for a very long time after that, because it's so tricky to get into ketosis and stay there.
Right. Oh gosh. Yeah.
And she knew that, but then she was saying it's a way of life. And I'm thinking, if it's a way of life, it wouldn't even have occurred to you. It's like saying that someone's married is going to go off with someone else, but that's okay because every once in a while you need to cheat. If you made a commitment eating a certain way, you don't get to cheat on your birthday. Like, so I think when people go on these food plans that should be a way of life, they still have the dieting mentality. That's when they have all this cheating going on. Or vacations are a classic example. I was just talking to someone, she gained 8 pounds in a 7-day vacation. I didn't even ask. I didn't even ask what she was eating. because her attitude was, I'm so good when I'm home. She just volunteered that, and I changed the subject because I didn't even think about it. But there's a lot of, being good, being bad, judging what you're eating. And all of that is just so detrimental to long-term just wellness and happiness. Because if we're healthy and health is first, we just eat a certain way, we live a certain way. We just want that peace, you want that balance. And your why is overall general sense of well-being. It isn't to be skinny by Friday. And with a lot of these things, people don't even think about why they're doing it. They don't. When they grab the chips or they order the pizza, they've had a really hard day and they deserve it. Well, don't you kind of deserve to be happy and healthy more than that quick fix of pizza? And by the way, you get bloated from all the cheese and the wheat, but you think it's fun for 5 minutes.
Temporary dopamine fix.
Yeah, the temporary dopamine fix of the white flour, and you think it's fun because maybe it was fun when you were in college, but actually you look like you're pregnant if you're a woman after you eat pizza, and then you have major GI distress from the cheese, and then you're feeling bloated for the next couple of days. Wow, that's really fun. That really made the problem at work so much better. So if you can just think through these choices, especially when anything is out of the ordinary, like you deserve something or you're on a vacation, think about how you're going to feel, at the end of the night or the next morning. There's oftentimes that hot fudge sundae, the next morning, it's not going to serve you.
Rarely does it.
Yeah, next morning you wake up, it's sort of like the tequila shot at 2 a.m. The next morning you're never like, I'm so glad I had that third tequila shot. No one ever says that. It's like, why did I have that third tequila shot? What were you thinking? Why did you make me do that? Because we don't need the ice cream sundae. It's just all of our emotions are out of whack. We're not thinking about our body as a whole. And like I said earlier, we can't get away from the chemical reaction of these foods. So even if we're having a ton of fun and we ate it, we're still going to have to deal with the sugar for the next couple of days, because everything's going to seem to draw us to sugar, because we're going to have all this sugar pumping in our body that's going to go away. We're going to think it's a really good idea to have more sugar. And that's why the cheat day concept or the cheat meal concept can get people in a lot of trouble, because they have a lot of sugar or a lot of whatever, and psychologically they're back in the game of eating that way. And then chemically their body's like, yay, she finally wised up. And then say we only make it one day, the next 3 to 4 days we're kind of detoxing from it. So if we can just get in this way of just eating healthy a lot, or 99% of the time, it's just a lot more of, it's just a lot easier to keep it up versus 6 days on, 1 day off for the average person.
What should we do when we fall off the wagon, so to speak? We've been really good, and then we did reach for that margarita one too many. What are your recommendations around getting yourself back on track?
First of all, don't starve yourself. Get back on track and be very honest with yourself as to what went wrong. I mean, I'm serious. Analyze it with loving kindness of, I was on vacation. I felt like I deserved it. Why I feel like I deserved it? Because, the baby at home cries too much and I don't get any sleep. And I looked at food to solve it. Okay. Just look at it analyze it, objectively analyze it, because then you can cut it off at the past next time and know that food never solve anything but hunger. It never does. So that's the mindset part of it. The chemical, weight, all that stuff. Resist the urge to starve yourself. Resist the urge to go on a cleanse. Resist the urge to do anything drastic, because that's still that dieting, crazy thinking, which makes us more likely to go in the other direction in a couple days. So get back to what works. Drink a lot of water. Get some sleep. Work out the normal amount. Don't take 4 spin classes in a row. And just treat your body really well, because beating yourself up never works.
So resets and detoxes. Some people use cleanse as sort of like a binge and purge.
Yeah, I used to. So I know they don't work. And it still gets you on that, that seesaw of dieting and deserving food and all that stuff, where we want you to have some peace of mind here. And okay, so what? So you had a margarita. The world is still rotating. Nobody died from a margarita. That kind of, just put it in perspective of the big picture of, but most of the time you eat really well, and most of the time you make the right choice. So, okay, so you were human once. Ooh, it's okay. Like, it's going to be all right if we learn from it. So what did we learn? Okay, we learned A, B, and C. Okay, cool. Now get back to what you know works and go on with your life, versus, going on some weird reset while you drink a celery for a week, and then, you can't think, your blood sugar spiked because all you're having is carbs and on. That can create a whole different mess. So just being nice to yourself, eat normal food, drink a lot of water, get some sleep. That's my recommendation.
Can't I just exercise to lose weight?
That's another interesting one, because first of all, it'll take about 1,000,000 years to make enough of a caloric deficit. Your body will adapt if you're exercising a lot. And oftentimes a lot of us tend to eat more when we exercise. So it's very hard to kind of keep that up. When what really works is changing our diet, getting more sleep, finding a better way to work with our stress, and exercising. But just taking up running, it'll take you a very long time to lose 5 pounds. But I get why people want to do it.
What purpose does the extra weight serve for many of us?
Many of us, I believe it serves a huge purpose. It's an excuse for why things don't work out. It's something for us to focus on versus the real problem in life. If only I was 10 pounds thinner, then I could, dot, dot, dot. I didn't even realize why I had an extra 15 pounds until I lost it. I didn't even realize it served a purpose. I just thought I, wanted to weigh less. And then after I lost it, I realized I wouldn't have gone for writing a book. I wouldn't have gone for like posting pictures of myself in a bathing suit if I was still that number. That was my kind of like my reason for staying small, for not getting out of my housewife shell was, well, I don't like my body or whatever. So that, even for me, those 15 pounds were serving a purpose. And when I realized that, it blew my own mind, because I've been asking clients that for 6 months. So it's a very common thing of the weight serves something, and it's okay if you don't know it right now. You will figure it out eventually. But sometimes 100 pounds is why our marriage stinks. And it's easier to blame the 100 pounds than to really analyze or get to the bottom of why you and your husband have grown apart.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's pretty deep.
Deep stuff, right?
Well, you have to realize that the weight is not just about the weight. It's about
it's never about the food. It's always about
not
something
about
else.
it. No. I think once you get that key, you can free yourself, because I think a lot of people really think it's about the calories in, calories out, and exercise more. I don't know, or they think it's the plan. Does it really matter if I do keto or paleo or vegan, as long as I have this one thing right? I think that's the other thing, is follow whatever it is you're on. Like, a lot of times people don't commit and they don't actually do it for more than 2 days.
Yeah, and I think they also diet jump. Like, they're on keto for a while, then they go back paleo, then they go on.
Right. They do that with
then they're
exercise
intermittent
too.
fasting. And the thing about intermittent fasting is you need to have a 2-week lead up to it if you're going to do it right. And they do all these things without adult supervision. I mean, I one time ran just a free intermittent fasting challenge group on my Facebook page, just to be nice, right? You got to commit to doing it. Every day I post a little video, like, yay you, right? And so most people, the week before, I'm like, hey, cut out all the extra carbs. These are what I'm talking about, like, popcorn, candy. if you really still want to eat fruit, these are how you should eat it. So it's over, it's like 2 or 3 weeks. And this one woman's like, I didn't lose any weight. And I said, okay, well, tell me, like, what were you eating? And she was eating everything just in the 8 hours that she normally would. So she thought she could just eat everything, not change any of the type of food she was consuming, just that there was something magical about those 8 hours. I'm thinking, did you watch any of the videos? Did you read anything I wrote? But I'm sure to her, I don't know what I'm talking about, and intermittent fasting doesn't work, and when actually she didn't follow the directions. I mean, the first direction was to cut out all the crap. That was like step 1, cut out crap.
Right.
So I think the diet hopping does not help, but also the mindset of diet hopping, where you can do intermittent fasting, you can do paleo, you can do whatever. But if you don't figure out why you got overweight in the first place and be willing to change, like I said, maybe you need a new job, maybe you need to actually have that uncomfortable conversation with your mom or whatever it is. I can't solve that for you. I don't even know what it is. But until you're willing to have that, it's all details. So that's why diets are so hard.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people exercise hop too, like where they do this kick, they do HIIT training, or then they do a bar workout, or it's, now the next best thing, I'm going to go bungee or whatever. And I think it's really just finding something that you can stick with. I do believe in changing it up a little bit, but not like some people do, where they're just not ever sticking with anything.
Yeah, I mean, I taught Group X for 12 years, and I have, you and I, I'm sure, have many exercise teacher stories, but now I just go to the gym. I leave, and there's no drama. I don't think about it. I take one class, I'm out. I have Peloton at home if I can't get to the gym. But I just remember these people, they would, whatever the trend of the week was, or the boutique fitness place was, and they were really into it, and they're taking doubles. And I always would say to them, unless you're training for the Olympics, you have some sort of thing that someone's keeping an eye on you for, you really don't need to be working out that much. And more is not always better with exercise, because especially like when you reach a certain age, I hate that phrase, but it's true. The injury rate is so high with so many of us, like our back goes out from too much spinning. I taught spinning, so I can tell you that.
Yeah, I did too for 10 years.
I know, right? Our backs are so like, L4, L5. But so more is not always better with exercise. And it's really easy to just start piling it on when maybe we need to learn a little meditation or something. But yeah, I agree. The exercise hopping.
Yeah, I mean, really, we're busted. I don't mean to be busting everyone's chops today, but
no, I don't either. But I think the thing is like exercise is great in the right mindset of, I'm going to go work out for 45 minutes or an hour. It's going to be this, connect with my body. Maybe I'll run, or maybe I'll do whatever, but I'm not going to, work out on my demons, or, beat the treadmill into submission, or just work out.
And I think if you feel like you're beating your body up, you probably are. And
yeah,
that you need to look at other parts of the solution. Like maybe, you're not losing weight because you're overtraining and you have too much cortisol, or you have too much inflammation, or you're eating too much. And it's basically like putting yourself on a hamster wheel and running around and around and never getting anywhere.
Yeah. Back in the day, I did CrossFit. My body does not do well on CrossFit. I got super bulky. And then someone told me to do paleo. And paleo was so great because I didn't have to measure anything. I got very chubby because my muscles got big. I added fat cells. I was taking like chicken, putting in olive oil, then rolling around in pistachios, and then frying it. Well, of course I gained weight. But people told me portions didn't matter on paleo. Portions always matter.
Oh, right.
Portion control. Matter. Portion. Yeah. I mean, there's just things. It's like you always wear your seatbelt. Portions always matter, people. anyway, so I gained weight. I looked horrible. I was always beat up. I got out of the CrossFit cult. But there's just certain exercises, even if they're super trendy, if your body's not doing it or you don't like how you feel or whatever, that's okay. Go find something else to do. Or if you're still doing jazzercise and you like it, more power to you. Like, it doesn't really matter. Just find something you like that you're going to do. If you like doing stuff at home, cool. Just do it. Not to be all Nike on you, but oftentimes people they really want to be with their friends and do the trendy stuff. Well, do whatever you like to do that works for you. And I think a lot of us just get very, we got FOMO or something about the new stuff, but it's just cardio.
Oh, right. I think people do have fear of missing out. They want to be on the latest and greatest trends.
Yeah, I mean, but you and
diet-wise,
yeah,
and
exactly. But I mean,
it must be the thing I'm missing.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is like, there's only so many ways at your heart rate. There's only so many ways to stretch, and there's only so many ways to do resistance training. And basically, all working out is a combination of the three to some extent. So if they have, they're holding you up by TRX straps from the sky, or you're doing an elliptical at 100 miles an hour, or you're doing something else crazy I can't even make up if I wanted to, at the end of the day, it's just working out. Give yourself a break and just do whatever works.
That sounds perfect. This has been such a great conversation today with you, Erin. Where can everybody reach you on social media, get your book, and find some of the videos that you were talking about?
Erin Wathen Wellness. That is my name on everything. So nice and simple.
Super simple. And what are 3 simple tips you can leave with the audience today? It can be funny or serious.
Let me think. Drink more water. Always wear sunscreen. And realize it's just food. It's nothing to stress out about. Just calm down about it.
Love it. Thank you so much, Erin. And thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Sisterhood of Sweat. Make sure to give us a review on iTunes and let Erin know how much you enjoyed her talk about food, and say no to the booty call.
No booty calls.
Oh my gosh, you're cracking me up. Thanks everybody.